There was blood on the pavement, bright against the gray concrete, soaking into a pair of white sneakers that would never look the same again. 16-year-old Aria Johnson lay crumpled behind Westbrook High, her body twisted in ways that no body should bend. Her arm jutted out, broken. Her cheek was split open. Her curls were matted with red. She wasn't moving. Not a sound, not even a twitch. Two cops stood above her, one's baton, dripping, the other's hands trembling, not from guilt, but from the rush of violence. And around them, kids were screaming. Phones shot up. She wasn't even fighting back. One boy shouted, "She goes here, you racist pigs," another cried. Inside that chaos, Mr. Patel, the physics teacher, with glasses always sliding down his nose, knelt beside her, pressing two fingers to her neck. His voice cracked. "She's not responsive. Call 911. Now, across town, her mother, Naomi Johnson, was hunched over a stack of case files in a cramped law office above a pawn shop. The coffee beside her had long gone cold. Naomi was a lawyer who'd learned that most of her clients lost before they ever stepped into a courtroom. Her phone buzzed once, then twice, then 5 times in a row. She almost didn't pick up. The last time it had rung like that was the call telling her that her brother had died overseas. But she answered. "Miss Johnson, your daughter's at Mercy General. She's non-responsive." The phone slipped from her hand. She was already moving, grabbing her keys, the go-bag she never stopped keeping under her desk, even though she hadn't worn a uniform in 8 years. By the time she hit the ICU, she was gasping for breath. Behind the glass, Aria looked so small, tubes in her mouth, machines beeping in rhythm that felt cruel in their indifference. A nurse approached carefully. "She's in a medically induced coma, severe head trauma. We're monitoring for swelling." Naomi's voice was flat, steady, almost too calm. "Don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me if my daughter's still in there." The nurse hesitated. "We hope so." Naomi walked past the officer guarding the room. "You were one of them?" she asked. The young woman shook her head quickly. "No, ma'am, just detail." Naomi's eyes didn't blink. "I didn't ask what you're doing now. I asked if you put your hands on my child." The silence said everything. That night, Naomi opened the back of her closet. Buried under blazers and court skirts was a duffel bag. Inside was her old flight suit, still smelling faintly of fuel and desert sand. On the chest, a faded patch, N. Johnson. Above it, the insignia of a ghost. Once upon a time, she had been a combat pilot who flew missions the Pentagon still wouldn't admit existed. They had called her Spectre. She'd promised herself that part of her life was over. But now her daughter was in a coma because 2 cops saw a black teenager and decided she was a threat. They had picked the wrong mother. The next morning, she walked into the central precinct like she owned the place. Her heels echoed on the marble floor. A desk sergeant looked up nervously. "Ma'am, you can't call your captain," she cut in. "Tell him Naomi Johnson is here." 10 minutes later, Captain Marcus Hale descended the stairs, jaw tight. "Well, well, didn't think I'd see you again." Naomi didn't flinch. "You shouldn't have to. But your men put my daughter in the ICU. You've got 48 hours to give me their names, their records, their body cam footage. If I don't have it, then you'll find out exactly what a woman with clearance, a combat record, and nothing left to lose looks like." That night, she drove to a warehouse near the harbor, a place most people thought was abandoned. A bald man with eyes sharp as knives opened the door. "Damn," he muttered. "Spectre's still breathing." "Not for long if we don't move fast," Naomi said, handing him 2 badge numbers. His name was Otis Reed, ex-Army, ex-FBI, now working in shadows. He flipped through files. "You trying to sue the department?" Naomi locked eyes with him. "No, I'm going to dismantle it." But Naomi wasn't just moving in the dark. She set up a camera in her apartment, a cheap one-tape tripod black curtain thumbtacked to the wall. No makeup, no edits. She looked into the lens with a calm that burned hotter than fury. "My name is Naomi Johnson. I'm a mother. I'm a veteran. And today I'm telling you what happened to my daughter." She lifted a photo of Aria, 16, smiling, wide cap and gown. She wanted to be a surgeon. Instead, 2 police officers beat her into a coma. She leaned closer. "How many more children have to be broken before you admit the system is already broken?" She pressed stop. Otis uploaded it that night. By morning, it had 1 million views. By noon, 2 million. Talk shows repeated her words. Mothers whispered her name. Hashtag spread like wildfire. Justice for Aria. The backlash at the precinct was immediate. Captain Hale snapped at his staff. Why didn't PR catch this? One officer stammered. She came out of nowhere. Not nowhere, Hale barked. From right inside our damn backyard. Naomi wasn't finished. At the hospital, a young nurse named Tasha approached her, nervous, fidgeting. I probably shouldn't even tell you this, but when they brought your daughter in, they dumped her like trash. One of them said she was lucky they didn't finish the job. Naomi's eyes narrowed. What's your full name? I can't, the nurse whispered. I'll lose my job. Naomi slipped her a card, her old federal clearance. You're a whistleblower now. You're protected. They try to fire you, they'll answer to me. Tasha's eyes filled with tears. Later, Otis slid a file across a diner table. The officers are Brent Collier and Ray Maddox. Collier's got multiple complaints, excessive force, racial profiling. Maddox signed off on everyone. Naomi flipped through. And those complaints buried, reclassified, protected by Assistant Chief Monroe, the same man you once warned about militarizing patrols. Naomi pushed the folder back. Then it's time I remind him exactly who I am. She leaked the surveillance footage, grainy but damning. It showed Aria being led calmly, confused, no resistance. Then the first strike. Then her body folding. You could even hear an officer sneer, pin her. Little brat thinks she's above the law. Naomi sent it to every civil rights lawyer she knew, then uploaded it herself. By midnight, justice for Aria was the #1 trend in America. Threats followed fast. An envelope slid into her mailbox, no stamp, no name, just one line typed. Bold, we remember who you were. Attached was an old court file from her days as a prosecutor before she changed her name. They were trying to shame her into silence. Instead, Naomi called a press conference. Cameras flashed as she stepped to the mic. Yes, I used to be Naomi Easton. Yes, I prosecuted cases that cost me my career and my marriage. I walked away because I refused to stay complicit. And I will not hide anymore. If the cost of telling the truth is revealing every scar I carry, so be it. What I won't carry is silence. The crowd erupted not in cheers but in respect. Then came the miracle. Naomi was in the courthouse when her phone buzzed. She ran all the way to the ICU. Aria's fingers twitched, her eyes fluttered, and she whispered, Mom. Naomi fell to her knees sobbing. I'm here, baby. I'm here. Aria was alive. The city shifted in that moment, from mourning to uprising. The trial began weeks later. Naomi testified first, her voice steady, her gaze unblinking as she looked at the jury. My daughter was beaten into a coma because 2 officers didn't see a child. They saw a threat, and the system protected them. The defense tried to paint her as bitter, vengeful. She leaned in. It's personal for every mother who's buried a child without justice. I just happened to still have mine breathing. The courtroom fell silent. Then came Officer James Riley, older, tired, carrying years of silence. He admitted to quotas memos, instructing them to control high-risk youth clusters near Westbrook High, a coded way of saying black students. He produced a memo signed by Captain Maddox himself. The gallery gasped. The infection was being cut out in real time. But the bombshell was the raid. Federal agents tipped by Naomi stormed a supposed evidence storage facility. Inside were hidden files, surveillance on pastors, journalists, activists, and yes, dossiers on Naomi and her daughter. They weren't just policing. They were targeting. Even Aria's medical records had been altered by a technician paid off by a police union contractor trying to blame her coma on a seizure disorder. That technician was arrested. The cover-up collapsed. Naomi didn't stop. She gathered parents in a church basement, victims and survivors who thought they were alone. They shared their stories, kids slammed against fences for wearing hoodies, boys traumatized for months after bogus arrests, mothers threatened into silence. That night, the Civilian Police Accountability Coalition was born. They posted misconduct logs online, subpoenaed records, painted murals across the city. One mural showed Aria's face surrounded by flowers with the words, "Justice doesn't sleep. It waits." The movement spread. And then came the day Naomi stood on the steps of the Supreme Court. Inside, the ruling was read in a 6-3 decision. All use of force cases involving minors must be referred to independent civilian-led investigative bodies. The Bell Justice Act, they called it. Naomi closed her eyes, breathing in the weight of history. Later, standing in front of Congress, she said softly, "I didn't want this. I didn't ask to be a symbol. I wanted my daughter to come home safe from school. That's it. We don't need miracles. We need accountability. And we won't be silent anymore. Back in Baltimore, Aria was recovering, her voice still fragile, but her mind sharp. She asked her mom, "Did we win?" Naomi smiled through tears. "We made them see us. That's the first win that matters." Aria squeezed her hand. "I want to help next time." Naomi nodded. "There will always be a next time." On a brick wall outside the hospital, artists painted Aria's face with eyes open, now alive. Around her were hundreds of names: victims, fighters, survivors. Beneath it, in careful script, the words, "Truth doesn't die, it gets passed on." And maybe that's the hardest part. This story doesn't really end. The question is whether we'll keep passing it forward or let silence creep back in. So I'll ask you, when you look at what happened to Aria, when you think about the system we all live under, do you believe real justice was served, or was this just one storm in a country still waiting for the skies to clear? Drop your thoughts below. Share your own stories if you've witnessed injustice, and let's keep this conversation alive, because silence was ever an option.